Welcome to Toast Time. It's week 32 and I'm making pitas. For this, it's really simple ingredients. We have water, flour, and yeast to make a sponge. And then it's more flour, olive oil, and salt. And that's pretty much it. I have the cast iron skillet out here for when we are going to cook it, but that's going to be in a while. We are having a family birthday and we're going to be filling the pitas, but I'm going to need a lot more than the 8 the recipe calls for. So I am tripling this. When you see all of this, it's not going to be what you're probably doing. The normal recipe that I have on the website makes 8 pitas. Now with this, there's an unknown amount of flour. It's going to be between 24 and 34-ish ounces of flour that's going to be needed when we actually are making the dough and putting this into the sponge. So I put the maximum amount in here with my scooper, and whatever I don't use can go back in, but I want to know how much I'm able to use and not go over that. All right, let's get started with the sponge. I have flour in here. I'm going to put the yeast and give it a little whisk together. And then add the water. This water is warm, not hot because we're putting it with the yeast, but we do want it to activate the yeast. So we're kind of creating a quick sponge here. All right, there's the water. We're going to let this sit for 5, maybe 10 minutes. My yeast usually activates very quickly. Once you see the bubbles forming and you know that it's working and alive, then you're good to go. So here's the beginning of my sponge. It's been about 5 minutes and I'm starting to get some of those bubbles that show, I don't know if you can see, but that the yeast is active and going. And now I'm just going to pour in the olive oil. This is kind of similar to tortillas, but we're going to cook them a little bit differently, kind of. Salt. And then I'm going to add about half of the flour to start. Okay, I'm going to go get the dough hook going with this, and that's that. All right, this came out of the mixer. I definitely used the lower end of the amount of flour here, which is good because you want this to be a higher hydration, because you want those water molecules, when it gets heated, to create that poof in the middle so that you can fill it. Just doing a couple of the last kneading here by hand. I have too much flour here. Doing this last little bit so I can feel the dough and make sure that it feels nice, which it really does. All right. You can do all of this by hand, of course, if you want to, but it does take a lot of strength and more time also. This is a beautiful dough. There it is, and it's slowly coming back. All right, I am going to, when I had it on the mixer, I kept on adding a scoop or 2 of flour until it just was coming off of the bowl and it wasn't trying to stick anymore. You let that incorporate, and because usually it'll look really good, but then once that flour is incorporated fully, it'll start to stick again. So you just keep on doing it and be patient. And then once it was coming off by itself, then I let it knead for about 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to take some olive oil, have my glass bowl, because it helps with a more even rise. And put this in here with the smoother side down to start. Give it a little spin and then flip it over. And we're going to cover this up, the shower cap. And this is going to double in size. So it might be about 2 hours. Depends on how warm your house is. If you have a proving oven, a lot of different factors, but you want it to double in size. This has been sitting, and my friends, it has more than doubled. This is really puffy. Here, I'll do a little poke for you there. All right. Now, going to flour this. Not that it's really sticky, but I want to make sure that we're not sticking. And I'm going to dump it out onto here. You can if you want, and you know what, I'm going to. You can deflate it because we're going to be deflating it, but it's really fun to do. Okay, take this out onto here. And we will cut this up. So remember, I said I'm doing 3 of the recipes. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to take this, well, obviously I have to start in half. Okay. And then this I'm going to do into thirds. Try and square off the edges a little bit. Okay. And then I need this side to be 12. So I'm going to do each of these into 4. So I will do that. Make it into a square. I had to process that for a second. Square. Now we have 4, 8, 12. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to just take a look at some of these bigger ones because there's a little corner up here that kind of is the runt of the litter here. So I'll do that and that. Okay. I'm going to make these into circles. So after these are put into the ball, they have to sit and rise for 30 minutes. Then we're going to roll them out, let it sit for 5, and cook it. My cast iron stretches from the front all the way to the back burner. I'm going to turn on my 2 burners and let this heat up. All right, and I'm going to go at about 3 out of 10 to start here because this is going to take me a minute. Okay, these have been resting. They puffed up a little bit, and what I'm going to do is now roll them out. Down a little bit of flour. A little pile right there. Okay, and we want these, I'm going to press it down, to be about a 1/4 inch thick. Let's start in the middle, go out. And then these have to sit for about 5 minutes after they're rolled. So all of this is going to really help it to get that pocket in the middle. Need a pocket. Okay. I'll let that sit. And I'm going to do one more over here. You really can do these as you're letting the one on there cook, but I have the ability to do 2 at a time. So I'm going to do these 2, let them rest, and then I can do the next 2 while they're cooking. All right, and I'm going to cover these back up and put a towel over these ones so they don't get dried out. Right, this is heating up. I'm gonna let these sit for 5 minutes and then we'll put them on. Hi, welcome to this side of the stove. I have this heated up. Now, one of the main keys for this kind of a bread is a high heat. So you don't want to be smoking, but you do want it to be a very high heat. These have rested, and I'm going to go ahead and put them on. Here's one. And here is two. We're just going to let this cook for about 2 minutes. You're going to start seeing all of these bubbles forming, which is good. Even forming here and coming up, popping up. Ooh, this is a pretty one right here. All right, we're going to let that cook. I'm going to lower this a little bit. And right now is when I'm going to roll out my other dough, my next batch. I'm going to flip it over. Let this side cook. Now we can see how much is puffed up. So that is going to be our pocket right there. These are awesome. All right, so these will go onto a plate or a cutting board to cool a bit, and we'll do the next batch. Full puff. Yay. Oh, this one's going by itself. And we got full puff. So I had a slight technical difficulty, but I got it worked out, and I'm back for the taste test now. These cooked up really great. The brown spots are beautiful, and we'll just tear it in half. You can see the pocket all the way through there and all the way through on this side as well. So if you wanted to reheat these, what I do is I put it in the toaster oven, or you can put it in the regular oven. I spray water on both sides, and you can put it at about 300 degrees for maybe 5 minutes or so, a little more if you want. You don't want it to get hard, but that the water that you spray on it will help rehydrate the bread so that you're able to maneuver it as if it just came off of the stove. Flavor with these, let's see. It has a really nice saltiness to it. The inside is really fluffy, and they're great. I got really lucky. I had 27 of them that I baked, and only 4 of them were either a no puff, I think 2 of them were, and 2 of them were a partial puff, but that's really good. And if you don't get puff, that's okay. If you get full puff, that's great. It all tastes wonderful, and you can always put stuff on top of it instead of filling it. But these are really, really good. These are going to be my go-to. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next toast time.